welcome. We have a great panel. We have a great conversation planned. We're going to touch on a lot of things. I want to remind people, in addition to connecting with the panel, make sure you connect with each other. I always advise people, meet two people you didn't know when you walked in the room, and then we're going to get started. So I always like to start from the beginning, right? Everyone's read your background. We would love to hear in your own words everyone's own journey, right? The pivotal people, the pivotal moments, the pivotal roles that brought you to where you are today. I'm going to start with Jackie.
Great. Hi, everyone. So my journey, I probably would start in college. I was an English major. I knew I wanted to go into communications, and did a bunch of internships. I mean, that was incredibly helpful to me. And in really learning the field. I thought I was going to go into PR. It was very helpful. Helped me meet people. And when I graduated, I got a job at a really small PR firm and decided it's not what I wanted to do.
I take no offense.
After all. Yeah, you know what? I think looking back on it, I think it was the size of the company. It was literally it was a 5-person company. And initially I thought, which is true, I think at a smaller company you learn so much and you get to touch so many things. But I left that experience knowing that I wanted to be at a bigger company. And then I went from there to HBO, which I was really just sort of like a fluke. I just, met someone who mentioned to me that there was, an entry-level position, and it was in the sales department. So sales not necessarily being the thing that I wanted to do, but I very much wanted to work at HBO. I knew that, I love the brand, I love the programming, and so it was a way for me to sort of get in the door. And I ended up being at HBO for over 10 years. I started which I think today is like very unusual. Yeah. And by the way, I left, and then now I'm back at HBO. But so I was there for 10 years. I think what I know kept it interesting for me is that I just kept going to different areas. And so I started in sales. I really learned what that business was like, got some increasing levels of responsibility, and from there moved into a more of sort of a field marketing role, which, at the time was working with, HBO had a number of regional offices, and so working with those, the sales folks in those offices, providing them with the tools that they needed and working with their clients, helping them do analysis for different deals, for different marketing programs. So, in doing that, gained a different set of skills, and then moved into affiliate marketing. And that was really, I was recruited by a woman who became, a mentor of mine. Her name is Shelley Brindle. And she was starting up this new area, and she thought that the fact that I had, had this experience would be helpful to her, especially the sales piece, ironically. And so I did that for a while. I ended up leaving. I stayed home a little bit with my kids, which was part of my journey too. And then I decided I was ready to get back into full-time work world. And this is where, maintaining those relationships and networking, where that really, comes in handy and it's very helpful. I, through a friend, learned of an opportunity at Six Flags, which at the time was opening a corporate office in New York City. It was a marketing role. And so a friend put me in touch with the woman who was hiring, and the role was not clearly defined, but I met this woman. Her name is Angie Vieira Barocas, and I love her so much. And in the first 30 seconds, I just said, I want to do whatever she's doing because she was just so dynamic and so smart and so like engaging. And so I said, I'm going to do this. It's not that clear exactly what this role is going to be, but in this case, I'm going to follow Angie, which ended up being great. I just learned so much from her, an incredible leader who I still channel through, to this day. There are times where I say, what would Angie do? And then I got laid off from Six Flags. There was a board turnover, and a lot of the leadership that had come in was let go. And so started looking for a job and thought, I think I might want to try agency work. I've never worked at an agency. I've always been the client for an agency. And I thought, I think I'd like to be like that person who, on the other side of it, the one who provides the strategy and comes up with the ideas. And so I got a job at BBDO, and I hated it. I hated it. I had never been so unhappy at a job in my life. I was like, wow, I guess I did not want to go into advertising. And it looked great on paper. It was to work on the M&M's business. I worked on M&M's business and on Hyatt hotels. And I just did not, agency life was not for me. And so I started looking for a new job. I was about 4 or 5 months in. And I had, I kept some things warm from when I was looking for the job before. Reached out to some other people, and let's see. Oh, so I ended up being I was going to go to SiriusXM. They really loved my background and in acquisition marketing, and so I decided I was going to go there. But then I needed a reference, so I called Shelly, and I said, Shelly, I'm getting this job with SiriusXM. Can you? She's like, okay, but I might have something for you here.
Come on back.
Yeah, and so I ended up. That's how I went back to HBO, working this time in marketing, and have since, then I've met another, I've been really fortunate. I've worked for some pretty amazing women. And so met a woman named Lucinda Martinez, who was leading the multicultural marketing department at the time. And she had this idea we were sitting in the sales part of the business. So she had this idea to make it, to move over to consumer marketing group, and she asked me to join her, and so together we built this group from the ground up. So, and it's been great, and I love it.
Amazing. Lots to come back to, but sometimes we were talking about this in the green room, right? Sometimes knowing what you don't want to do can be as instructive as hitting it on the head and finding the thing that you want to do. But we will come back to that. Debbie, how about you?
Well, a lot of good nuggets there.
Yes.
Well, I would say that I grew up a sports girl. I love sports, and I still love it now, but I always wanted to work in sports. And so I graduated from University of Virginia with an economics degree, so that makes total sense. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I ended up just, I'll date myself. You applied from looking in the newspaper for jobs, and you mailed your resume off. That's how you got a job. And I ended up just working for a hardware and software reseller, but still always wanted to be in sports. So I worked there. Was not my dream job, but I made amazing friends there, lifelong friends who are still, 25, I'll say 25 years later, and we're still friends. And I went to grad school full-time to get an MBA in sports management, and then when I was there, I realized I could pretty easily add on marketing and still graduate on time. So between my first and second year, I was fortunate to just get an internship at the NFL from just applying, and that was in consumer products. And so did that, and then I'm the example of just keeping in touch. I graduated with no job and kind of did a temp job here or there, and then my boss at the time, my internship boss, heard about a marketing job that somebody was going on maternity leave and they needed somebody to come in at the NFL, and I started temp and stayed there 11 and a half years. So that was a great experience. So, I was working in my passion and all that good stuff. And when I felt like it was time to leave, I did brand marketing there. So I oversaw, worked on like decor and what Super Bowl looked like and, our events and things like that, and worked with Nike on uniform development and logo development and all that good stuff. But when I was ready to leave, culture was really the top thing for me because the NFL is a really hard culture. And so I was very fortunate to end up at Paramount, which has an amazing culture. And I think people who have been there for a long time don't realize really how great it is. And so transitioned over doing that. And now I'm on my fourth job there, but they're all related to kind of strategy, operations. And then at the time of the George Floyd murder, I was overseeing communications and culture for the branded content studio as part of the sales team. And so there was a real opportunity there to really drive change, and I really felt that like in my core of like, we can do something now to really make people's lives better. And I was fortunate to kind of get that support to do that. And so now I do that as part of the sales team. And I also oversee our go-to-market strategies. So for example, like when we're going out to our clients, what are we saying? How often are we saying it? Just wrapped up a big presentation this week that we got out of the door. So, but I realized through that I love sports, and when I was at the NFL, I always used to say like, oh, I'm so happy to work in my passion, but the past couple years, I really feel like impacting lives, like that's really where my passion is, and that can be done kind of anywhere that's transferable. So super blessed to be able to do that.
And interesting in that definitely a lot of overlap in the journeys, right? But you're sort of following the journey and just kind of trusting where it took you. And you took a more deliberate approach and just made opportunities happen at certain points when you were ready for other things.
Yeah, and I think also just evaluating the opportunity in front of you. Like you don't have to know, especially when you're younger, you don't have to know where you want to end up. Like just figure out what's for you next.
Yes, exactly, the next job.
Yeah.
Joe, how about you?
Yeah, it's actually a perfect transition. I'm really excited that there's cameras and lights because when I went to school, I wanted to be a broadcaster. I wanted to be on TV. That was what I went to school for. I went to Ithaca College and went in for television radio with a concentration in advertising and public relations because it was there. But that's what I wanted to do. And then I started talking to people and realizing that you have to start off in the middle of Kentucky making like $18,000 a year and said, absolutely not going to do that. But my sophomore year, I had a professor, Scott Hamula, who came in for Advertising 101, had a bottle of Jolt Cola, didn't say a word, walked up in front of the class, guzzled the whole thing, and talked for 45 minutes straight, like went crazy. And I go, I like this guy. I want to do whatever he wants to do. That was my introduction to advertising. He started talking about brands, what they mean, and how brands are built. And I said, I love this. This is so much fun. You get to be creative. You get to be strategic. I want in on this. So I focused on that for the rest of school. I also did internships. Also did a PR internship where I realized I definitely didn't want to do PR. You'll see a recurring theme on like find things that you don't want to do and then pivot into something else. But I also did an advertising internship. It was with a small agency called The Ballpark in Los Angeles, and I loved it. We were doing sports work, we were doing local work, and it was fantastic. So I went about networking with anybody that I could from Ithaca College. I went out of my way to find any alums that were working in advertising and said, I need to talk to you. And I ended up getting an opportunity through the American Advertising Federation as one of their most promising minority students as an introduction into a brand new fellowship that Interpublic Group had never even run before. It was literally year one. And I remember sitting with Scott and saying, all right, so should I take a regular job or should I take this thing over here? And he goes, Joe, take a shot. You never know, right? And I am so grateful that I took that shot. It introduced me to people and opportunities that I wouldn't have gotten anywhere else. The agency world, as we talked about, is not for everyone, but it was for me at the beginning. I had the opportunity to be trained not only in account management, but also in media planning and creative. And getting some of those opportunities really jump-started my career. So my second rotation, they were 6-month rotations over a 2-year period. I was working for McCann in pharmaceutical advertising, not my passion, but I realized it was an opportunity. And I said, I need to dive into this as much as possible, and I really did. And serendipitously along the way, my account executive left and my account supervisor left, so it was me as a first-year fellow with an account director that needed to launch a drug for GlaxoSmithKline. And my executive vice president came to me at the end of the rotation and said, you can't leave. And I said, well, I'm being told that I have to go somewhere else. And he's like, you can't leave. He's like, I want to hire you, I want to promote you, but I need you to stay. So I had a very uncomfortable conversation with Interpublic Group where I said, I am leaving your fellowship. And they told me that I couldn't. And I said, well, I could leave and go somewhere else, or I could stay within your group. And they said, okay, fine. And I ended up staying within McCann and ultimately realizing after we launched that drug that incidence rates of myocardial infarctions were higher amongst minorities than they were in the general population. I went to that same executive vice president and said, what are we doing about this? Like, are we speaking in language to Hispanics? Are we speaking differently to African Americans? He goes, huh? And I go, okay, let me explain. I said, I'm Puerto Rican and I don't relate to anything that we are doing here. And he said, really? And I said, yes. And I'll tell you what, half of my family should know about the things that we're talking about, and they don't because you're not speaking to them in a way that they would understand. So he said, okay, put together a plan and we'll take it to the client. And we did. The clients were interested and they said, okay, let's do a test. And we did a pilot and the results were incredible. So then he said, okay, Joe, build this. So at 24 years old, we started Human Care Salud and built it up into a multi-million-dollar business for McCann in a very short amount of time. But again, all journeys are different. So I realized, like you, I love sports. I was running our softball team and our football team and our basketball team and any ball team that we had on the agency life, because you get to do those things on the agency side. You get some of the fun that goes with working 18-hour days. But an opportunity presented itself with Verizon through some of those connections that I had on some of those teams. One girl was working on Verizon and she said, hey, you like sports? Like, we're looking for somebody to start the sports side for us. They didn't know what sports really meant. And they didn't have branded entertainment at the time. So I went over and essentially started branded entertainment at McCann for Verizon. And that included not only our studio partnerships, but also our league partnerships. So launching NHL Mobile, NFL Mobile, Verizon Championship Racing. Everything that had to do with sports basically came my way, which was awesome. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work. But it gave me that opportunity to really look into the partnership side of the business, which I had never really considered before. Nor did I know it was even an option, right? But you get exposed to things and you start realizing, hey, I could do that, and I could probably do that better than this person over here. Or you might have new ideas that you can bring to the table. And in all of that kind of interaction, a gentleman that I was working with started a brand new agency that essentially was a hole plugger, is what I like to call it. You had advertising agencies, you had PR agencies, you had media agencies, but there are so many other things that a brand needs help with. And so essentially he started Culture Shop, and I was the 4th employee there, and we were running events for Verizon as well as all of their sponsorships. And I got to learn event marketing, which again, I learned I did not want to do. 1,000-line project plans are not for me. But I got to be really creative and have a lot of different opportunities while working at a startup. I think you mentioned earlier, like when you're at a 5-person place, you do everything. You get exposed to everything, but you have the opportunity to do everything as well. And we built that up into an 18-person organization that ultimately Ryan Seacrest bought and merged with another agency called Civic Entertainment Group. So I went over there for a little while. I was running some partnerships for Verizon with the X Factor, if anybody remembers that show. And someone over on the Fox side said, hey, I really like how you do things from a partnership perspective. we're kind of launching something over here called the Brand Integration Group. Would you want to work here? I said, absolutely not. I cannot go to a place that I have to wear a suit and tie every day, that feels very stodgy. I had this like thing made up in my mind about what a media company was. And I said, I can't go work there. I've been on the agency side forever. I like wearing my Jordans, right? And I like to dress in jeans. So I can't do that. That's not my lifestyle. And they said, just come in and meet with us. We had done work with them, but I had never actually gone in and like sat with anybody to understand what they did on a day-to-day basis. And as I did, I realized how amazing the people were. You know, you touched on culture earlier, and I didn't realize how much I was missing from a cultural perspective, both at the startup and on the agency side. And when I met with the people at Fox, I realized this is a place that I could thrive and do really well. So I joined them about 8 years ago. I've had multiple roles from a sales marketing perspective. Last year, I took over our full portfolio, and that means Fox Entertainment, Fox Sports, Fox News Media, as well as Tubi, and putting those brands together under a singular umbrella, going to market and putting together that messaging and that strategy. How are we going to market? What are we saying? How are we showing up and ensuring that our clients understand that message?
Amazing. Things they all have in common, right? Number one, networking, relationships, pivotal people who recognized talent in you and gave you opportunities to really flourish. Being both deliberate, but also just clear about what you want, what you don't want, what you want to wear at work, and letting that push you in the right direction. And then the third thing you all have in common is creating something, right? And what you all have created in your own way is the theme of tonight, right? So I want to shift to talking a little bit about multicultural marketing, what that means within your particular organizations, and specifically in the context of what you do. I'm going to start with you, Debbie, but talk about that in the context of your work at Paramount and what your day-to-day is like.
Sure. So again, you know, after the murder of George Floyd, there was a lot of attention paid, and Paramount has a legacy of kind of programming that reaches different audiences, so it's very ingrained in our culture anyway to kind of focus on DEI and multicultural marketing, things like that. So when we think about multicultural marketing, we differentiate between what we say is DEI, which is like your internal culture and trainings and making sure that people have empathy and understand each other and things like that. And then on the multicultural marketing side, it's the marketing that you do in order to reach a specific audience, and how that might be different from general market, which now really is multicultural marketing because the world is so diverse. So I, way back in February of 2020, before George Floyd, my boss, Dario Spina, who's amazing and heads Paramount Brand Studio, saw that we were doing some multicultural work in different places across the team, and wanted to operationalize that and put it together as a capability that we could take out to our clients to say, if you need multicultural marketing, come to us, we'll do that. But we did recognize that we had a lot of work to do on the inside before we could go out to clients and do that. So we put together this year-long project, which really took about a year. And I will say we were fortunate in having started that when George Floyd happened, we already had a blueprint for things that we were going to do. So that was, internally, we needed to look at our hiring to make sure that our team was as diverse as we were trying to meet. We wanted to do some thought leadership and internal training to make sure everybody had an understanding. We weren't, we had made the decision pretty early. We weren't doing a vertical around multicultural marketing. We wanted everybody to have a core understanding, and then we would have experts that would work on those. So a number of those things, so we could just jump off very quickly. And by July of 2020, we had mandatory trainings for everybody around DEI and things like that, and really coming from the place that your external, you have to be right internally in order to do better external. So that's I say that DEI and multicultural marketing are cousins, because we had to do a lot of DEI work on our team to then attack the multicultural marketing that we were doing for our clients and make sure that it was authentic. And along that way, Paramount also developed an initiative called Content for Change, which is cross-Paramount. It was originally launched by BET, but the idea that our content impacts how people see themselves and see other people. And so we want to use our content to combat bias and stereotypes. And so that's a big initiative for our team. And so I work on how we're bringing partners into that along to make sure that we're driving impactful change across the board.
Amazing. Jackie and then Joe.
Multicultural marketing. So for us, multicultural marketing, as I mentioned earlier, it was something that HBO as a brand didn't do. They started doing like about 8 or 9 years ago, from a consumer-facing way. It was done. We were working with our partner, a lot of our distributors, in providing them with recommendations, with materials on how they could reach different segments of their audience.
Can I ask you a question? Huge distributors, you mean your cable?
Yes. So think Comcast. Well, now it would be Comcast and AT&T and all those folks. Yeah. But what we weren't doing is just speaking directly to consumers. And so we saw an opportunity there, certainly a business opportunity, to do that. And I mean, the thing about HBO is that, I guess like Paramount had this legacy of creating very diverse content. If you think about a lot of the shows on HBO, like we were the first to do things, to show things, right? So we had the credibility in the market, which I think was really important. But we didn't have sort of an internal resource within marketing that was really focused on that. And so that's where myself and Lucinda, we developed the strategy. And so as multicultural marketing, we work very closely with the other marketing groups, most closely with our content marketing group, which is more the general marketing team. And but our work, we are focused specifically on Black, Latinx, AAPI, and LGBTQ+ audiences. And our work is really rooted in culture, right? And so we want to position the brand sort of in a cultural context so that we can develop promotions, campaigns, programs that are culturally relevant, right? And so that means you're looking at insights, at passion points, language, things like that, to promote certain shows, and that's became sort of the differentiator. And so my team, I have a small team, but we support all of the content that we feel across the calendar that we know will resonate with certain audiences, and we know that based on research, either if it's a returning season, we know which audiences showed up, where there's opportunity for from a business perspective in terms of viewership. If it's a season one, we'll do sort of cultural assessments to see like what's the opportunity here, who do we think this show will most appeal to, and then use that to develop our marketing plans. And in addition to supporting shows like Insecure and a Black Lady sketch show and Lovecraft Country, shows that hopefully you've heard about and watched. We also a few years ago started what we call these audience initiatives, and the idea there was we didn't want to just speak to the audience during certain times of the brands that are just like, hey, it's Black History Month, and they're like in and out. And so we didn't want to do that with the content. Like, okay, so now Insecure is on, and we're sort of out there, and then there's sort of a drop off. And so we started this move towards more of really evergreen programs, and so trying to figure out how we can have a more consistent conversation and engagement with our audiences. Obviously with social media, it's very the initiatives that we've launched are very social media forward, as you might imagine, and so. Coming up with content that we know is going to be relevant and serving that up, having in real life events pre-COVID where we were able to pop up create activations for different shows, or meeting the audience where they are. And so going to places like Essence Fest, which happens every year, in July in New Orleans, or being at the Martha's Vineyard African American Film Festival, or, so this idea of like, instead of creating something and having people come to us, going to where the audience is and then figuring out, again, like a relevant way to show up. And it's all through the lens of the programming.
I have this saying where I always say to people, it's always a good time to talk to Black people. It
Yes.
doesn't have to be February,
Yes.
and it doesn't have to be Juneteenth.
Yep. It's true.
We're here all year long.
Yes, yes. So that's definitely very very important to us and central to to what we do.
And how about you, Joe?
Yeah, look, at Fox, we have a very focused portfolio, right? As opposed to Warner Brothers Discovery or Paramount, who has large portfolios. We have Fox Entertainment, Fox News, Fox Sports, and Tubi. Each of those are marketed differently. They each have their own strategies. For example, on sports, we have Fox Deportes that speaks to the Latino audience. But the one common piece that you'll find when looking at our programming is intentionally having our talent reflect the communities that are watching it, right? Reflecting the viewers. It's a true intentionality to it across the board to make sure that when people are watching, they see someone like themselves. I don't want to kind of recount everything that Jackie and Debbie said, but you'll find a lot of similar kind of approaches across the board because a lot of us are trying to reach mass audiences. But I think you do that and you mentioned it earlier, right? Like, it's not multicultural marketing anymore. It's general market. This is what the world is. It's not a singular race. It's not a singular gender. You need to be able to speak to everyone and speak to them authentically and represent that authentically. And I think that matters more than anything. You can't show up in February for Black History Month. You can't show up in September with a sombrero and some tacos and say, oh, I'm talking to Hispanics here. That would be the opposite of authenticity, right? That's the way to turn people off. So in order to do that, though, you have to have people in the room that have that experience,
Yes.
right? It starts in those writers' rooms and the production rooms and our sales organizations. They have to be reflective of that. I will say, in the 8 years that I've been on the media side, I don't think that I've seen anybody do it very well as far as being wholly reflective. I think we need more people in a pipeline to bring in and to bring diverse thinking and experiences to the table. I am part of our Diversity and Inclusion Council. The murder of George Floyd was a flashpoint for a lot of people, and a lot of people's eyes opened to what many of us know. And it was absolutely terrifying that it took an act like that for that to happen. But it did create change, at least at a low level, right? And we're starting, but we've got a long way to go. And the work that we do in our Diversity and Inclusion Council, we actually had a woman from Factuality in today that puts you in someone else's footsteps, right? And like lets you live their journey. And you understand some of the things that you may lose just by being a Black woman or a Muslim man or a transgender person, right? And it opens a lot of people's eyes. We do a lot of that work intentionally. Matter of fact, I'd love to trade some best practices. But it is something that we focus on wholly and find incredibly important.
And ultimately, that is the theme of the panel, right? What you guys are describing is meaningful engagement. It has to be authentic. It has to, and representation is important. It's not the beginning. But I keep hearing Debbie's voice in my head saying, if you're not right inside, it's not going to work externally. So the importance of making sure that both sides of the organization are addressing the issue, right? Internally, not just looking at the business side and customers and audience. And then also the point of not being opportunistic, right? It is a two-way street. It is a year-round relationship. This is what meaningful engagement sounds like, right? Yes. But I'm glad that you talked about representation, because we are going to get to what everyone came here for. advice on how to get into the field. How do we get these jobs? How do people enter into the field? Joe, I'll start with you. What are some of the entry points for people within your organization, and what advice do you have for folks in the room who are looking to break into your world?
Yeah, look, you're doing something right by being here tonight, is the first thing that I would say. So thank you all for being here. The most important thing to me is networking. And in order to do that, you have to find a way to make a connection with someone, right? Maybe you share something in common, maybe you share a friend, maybe you saw something that they said that really touched you. Make sure that when you reach out to people, there's something behind it, right? Identify a way to make that connection. Whether that's through LinkedIn, whether that's at an event, whether that's at, you're watching someone speak, you're reaching out to an alum, any of those things, it's really about identifying connections and figuring out, how can you make it worthwhile for that person to spend their time talking to you, right? At Fox, we actually created a new program a couple of years ago called Fox Fast, which is the Fox Ad Sales Training Program. It's similar to the 2-year fellowship that I went through, in that you'll go through a rotation over the course of 2 years within Fox, getting exposure to different pieces of the sales organization. So you'll have an opportunity to do a sales rotation, as well as a marketing rotation, some pricing and planning rotation, and then a TBD fourth, depending on where you're kind of leaning. The idea is to fast track people, give them an opportunity into the organization, but also give you skills that a lot of people aren't getting in a short period of time, because we want to talk about that representation and elevate people within our organization by giving them the skills that matter. So look out for some of those programs, apply for them, ask questions. You'd be surprised at how many people just don't ask questions. We love questions. So definitely ask them, reach out, and make sure that people know who you are. The other thing is, I'd say stand out in some way, right? I wore these tonight on purpose because I wanted to make sure that people knew that you can wear sneakers in media. But I stand out a lot, right? I wear bright colors. I have an eggplant blazer on. Nobody else has an eggplant blazer at Fox, trust me. But do something to stand out, right? Be yourself. This is me. This is what Joe brings to the table. But be you, right? Whatever makes sense for you, find a way to stand out and be memorable.
So I'm a shoe girl. but I double down on the networking, but I would also say every job doesn't have to be your dream job or be the thing that is exactly what you want to do, and just take those opportunities to learn from everything, and especially I think when you're starting, you can do 2, 3, 4 jobs before you end up in what you actually want to do, and so just take advantage of that. And like me, my first job was in an inside sales rep, and I had no interest in that, but again, I've got the best friends of my life from there. I was a manager at 24 years old because of the opportunity, and everybody was so young and things like that. So, take something from everything and kind of just figure out your own path. Don't worry about what anybody else is doing or what level they are or what all those kind of things. Just march to your own drum and figure out what you want to do.
I think internships are incredibly important. They really are. It's so basic, but I know for me, I did 3 internships when I was in college, which is a little excessive, but I was a little, But if there is, if you can identify, programs at different companies that you're interested in, and fields that you're interested in. It's communication, so companies that you're interested in. Look on their websites and see if they have, if they offer internship programs. Think about, the people here. What are the resources that are available to you to help you find these opportunities, whether it be your school's career center, an organization like this. I'm on the board of a organization called ColorCom, which is women of color in the advertising, marketing, public relations fields. And that's a terrific way. That's a group that you can reach out to and see if there are opportunities to do internships. So I'd say kind of look for those types of opportunities, because it really is invaluable. Yeah.
Plus one, by the way, for identifying some of those organizations.
Yeah.
I mean, AAF was literally everything to me. And I put my heart and soul into it, but it got me the opportunity that was out there. And there are so many of those. So, find that passion point, right? Find something that you are really into and dive into it wherever you can, because there's plenty of organizations that could use young people's help and energy and passion within the industry.
Yes, and I will double down on the Center for Communication, right? Formally pushing out internships and opportunities, but again, that's the importance of the people in the room, right? You might not find the opportunity, but you'll find the person who will connect you or give you that bit of information that's going to get you to the internship. So definitely don't leave without making some friends. I want to come back to practical advice, because they are giving such good practical advice. We talked a little bit about networking and kind of do's and don'ts. What do you look for in talent? What stands out to you in terms of something that shows promise in a potential employee, or maybe the opposite, things that tell you, okay, this might not work? Let's go to Debbie, because she's ready to answer.
Well, because I will always take enthusiasm and kind of a desire to learn above a skill set, because I feel like you can learn that, but if you don't want to be here, if you don't have that drive, like, that's always what I will take as the number one.
Yes.
And I also think, particularly as we talk about people of color, and especially in the ad sales business, you will not find that many people who have that background that you're looking for right now, just because the numbers are so low. And so we need to look at transferable skills for people and the enthusiasm and things that they've done and their ability to learn the job. And then you have to have a little bit more patience with that. But I will always take that, hands down.
100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that's number one for me as well. Someone being prepared, right? You come into a conversation, not an interview, but a conversation, and understanding who you're talking to and where we're at, asking the right questions, showing that you've done your research. Because if you haven't, how do I know that you're going to do the research for me that I need you to do, right? Making sure that you're wholly prepared also means when you're sending your resume out, do not have a spelling mistake on it.
I will throw it right away.
Spell check, ask a friend, ask 3 friends to look at it, but that will literally be the first thing that goes in the trash. And you could be the most amazing person that we will never have the opportunity to meet because of something like that. It may seem trivial, but details matter. I mean, you hit it right on the head with, we can teach skills, right? But attention to detail, enthusiasm aren't things that you can really teach, and those are the first things that I look for every time.
Yeah, ultimately you're looking for people that you want to work with every day, and those things matter. We're going to come to Q&A, so start thinking about your questions, and I will let Jackie have the last word.
I was going to just say people that you want to work with. That's what I tell people. Like, people on my team who are managers, who maybe are doing a first round of interview for an entry level position. I say to them, who is the person that if you get stuck at the airport in O'Hare, that you want to sit at the bar with for 8 hours? That's the person that or sit whatever. That's the person you want to hire. But I look for passion. I feel like in this space for multicultural, I really feel like it's something that you have to have a passion for. And a desire to do this specific type of marketing. So I look for passion. Some who's really interested in working with us to highlight diverse voices, to really elevate some projects that may not get all the love from other places. But and I think that definitely takes passion.
Okay, I think we're going to get some good questions. I would recommend everyone to introduce yourself, say your name, and if you are a student, what school you come from, and you can all just start to line up behind the microphone. Sure. Go ahead.
Hello.
Tell us your name and your.
My name is Eric Sowers. I'm coming from Queensborough Community College, and I have this question to any of y'all that wanted to answer it. What is the best advice that you can offer for a student like me who has ADHD?
I'll let Debbie
I'll
take
say
that one.
I'm a believer that places want to make accommodations for things because, you know, as everybody knows, just bringing the diversity in all ways to our jobs only benefits us all. So I think if you need a quiet place to work or things like that, I would ask for those things. And places, hopefully, or if it's in a place where you really want to be, will accommodate for that and kind of help you and give you the tools that you need to succeed.
And if they don't, it's not a place that
That's
you want
right.
to be anyway.
Yep.
That's absolutely
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
And I would just add to that, look for places where that is of value, right? Large organizations, when people think about representation, one of the things we think about is all types of diversity, right? Not just racial, gender diversity. Diversity is defined many ways, and that your perspective will be an asset to a lot of organizations. So spending the time to figure out, okay, who needs me? Because someone needs you.
That's great. That's a great point.
Thank you. Oh, this
And if I-
person looks familiar. Hi, Danny.
My name is Danny Marquez. I am a student at Columbia University. I'm in one of Alex's classes. And I just want to speak to that point too. I have ADHD as well. And I just want to say it's a superpower.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a creative superpower,
Yes.
especially. So anyway, my question today is I already have a master's in violin performance. I'm a career changer. So my question is, you talked about transferable skills, and those are extremely important. I've written about it on LinkedIn. But as a career changer and being a little bit older, what would be like the best thing to be part of my portfolio right now? You know, I work for a comms department right now as a coordinator, but I kind of like want to build a portfolio that's maybe outside of what I do right now.
I'm going to throw this to you, Jackie. Or if not, anyone who wants to answer.
Yeah, I might need
Well,
a minute.
where are you looking, sorry, as you look at kind of diversifying, right? Where would you like to ultimately end up? Or not even ultimately, where's the next step for you? Where would you like to
You
be?
know, it's really hard for me to decide that because it's been a whirlwind of a 2-year period, and I'm about to graduate with a few of my cohort here. But I want to be somewhere creative, somewhere like Nintendo, somewhere fun, somewhere where I'm not. I've even thought about like Fox because I don't see myself necessarily with Fox. So I thought that could be a place for me to take my space. But honestly, my future is very open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, from my perspective, if I were you, I would look at identifying like, what do you ultimately want to do at one of those places, and then figure out what are the skill sets that those jobs need, right? And then you build your portfolio around that. Look, there are a lot of transferable skills in our industry,
Yeah.
right? I can teach you sales tomorrow. It's not difficult. It's not rocket science, if I'm being honest with you. But again, I think it's showing what you bring to the table as a unique individual, and then showing how that applies to whatever role you're ultimately looking to join, right? Are you looking to join an ad sales marketing team? Are you looking to join a sales team? Are you looking to join a marketing side, right? There's so many avenues for you to go to. It really ultimately depends on which way you want to go.
Okay. So a little more research on my part.
I have a question for you. Have you left music behind, or do you think you could incorporate it
that's-
into the new you?
I went on a national tour for 2 years, 2 different national tours, and I burned out. And that's a lesson. If you love something, make sure you love it for life. I burned out, and so I can go back to it. I go back to it as a hobby. I write music, play music. But yeah, it's hard to decide if I want to go into like the music industry.
Because I was thinking maybe that's your way in. So if you're interested in, being in the, communications, media, but maybe because you have this wonderful background and maybe that's you sort of start that way.
Yeah.
And then that's a space where you can, working at, you know, I don't know, Radio City Hall, whatever. And maybe that's a space where you can get more of the skills that you might need coming out of the assessment,
Yeah.
and then move over.
Yeah, and use my experience.
Exactly.
That makes total sense. I
Yeah,
love that.
so that, you know, and obviously there's several millions of organizations that would
Yeah.
welcome that, you know, that background.
Yeah, look,
Awesome.
I agree. I think combining your passions makes a lot of sense, right? Think about what you're passionate about. I think we said that earlier. If you have that passion for music and want to get into communications, maybe look at something like a Sirius XM,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Something like that where it makes sense, where you're bringing your passions together and you can say, look, here's what I bring to the table,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here. And thank you, Al.
See? Thank you.
My name's Christina Strack, and I'd like to say that Debbie won the shoe contest. Everyone should be agreeing with that. Debbie, I don't know why they're not clapping. So last year I was working on raising capital for Broadway shows and then also shows over in London. I thought that being a producer for Broadway is a job, and maybe some of you know, or someone out here might know, that being a producer isn't really a job, meaning there isn't like an employer who has benefits and a 401k and all these nice things. So then I started thinking, well, maybe I could work for a production company, you know, work for a producer in a production company. So the skill sets that the producers really liked was my ability to produce decks and to sell and to raise money and to deal with high net worth individuals. So I was thinking, okay, so maybe Paramount, or, you know, Paramount's who I had in mind, but is a company where there's like a real job, you know, that you can do. There's a woman named Leiloni who I spoke to there, and she said that you should talk to a supervising producer. I don't know what a supervising producer, you know, there's like, producer is very nebulous. If you guys, the most nebulous job title I've ever heard of. What is a supervising producer? That's my question.
I'm not in production, but
Yeah, a supervising producer.
It's even nebulous to people who work there. Okay.
It is, and again, because they're diverse organizations with so
Yeah.
many different pieces, right? Because I'm in ad sales marketing, I've worked on the production side a little bit, so within production companies, you're going to find different titles of different people. So somebody at Paramount being a supervising producer may be a completely different title at Fox, quite honestly.
That's what I thought.
That's what
Yeah.
you're also seeing here, right? It's an industry thing. I wouldn't focus too much on a title per se, but it's identifying the right person, right? And just continuing to talk to different people around. I would say explore different angles, right? I think the production company angle is very interesting, depending on what you ultimately want to do. You also mentioned that you write decks and sell to high net worth individuals, which
So-
is sounds like our job, right?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So
Well, and the deck part
a lot
for
of
me.
different angles that you ultimately do.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll reserve my second
Transferable
question.
skills.
My second question, I am actually working on an ad, a comedy ad that'll be done on Tuesday, but I will not be mic hogging. Sorry. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
But usually the supervising, at least I'm more familiar on the documentary side, not the big studio side. It's the person who does the math, right? The person who can oversee the budgets, the person who manages the business, and that's actually a compliment, right? They see that you probably have both skill sets.
Okay, all right, thank you.
There is a place for you, my dear.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Go ahead, please introduce yourself.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I'm Lilia. I'm from the New School, and on the other side, I'm a content creator. So I'm Hispanic. I'm from Mexico. I've been a few years here, but my question is kind of general. Just wanted to know, like, what opportunities do you guys see in the multicultural marketing right now, and where do you guys think it's headed to in the next few years, maybe?
I'm going to give that one to Debbie.
I have some mixed feelings about it because I think that, 3 years ago, everybody made all these big commitments and lots of money of things that they were going to do. And I think that things are better, but things haven't panned out where I think all of the promises were. I do still think that there is a lot of opportunity, and I feel like for the brands that it still matters to now, it matters a lot, right? And so that's where the opportunity is. And so I think it's in finding who is still supporting after all the promises, and it wasn't performative, and it wasn't, in February for Black History Month. And I think that's where the opportunity lies. Because if you are still, you're really in it, if you're still doing it.
Yeah, I think adding on to that, look back at who was doing it before 2020 as
Yeah.
well. and is still doing it. I also think that perhaps this is a little hopeful, but as we move forward and look at the next 10 to 20 years, that it will truly become part of the fabric of general marketing. I think that the representation on marketing teams for any major brand needs to continue to diversify, and someone like yourself would be a welcome addition to many brand marketing teams across the board. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity moving forward for people that bring a different vantage point and skill set, and especially in a fragmented marketplace, you're going to need to reach people in different ways. So bringing yourself, your whole self to the table will matter more than ever.
And
And
Jackie,
the
I'll let
only
you
other
add
thing
on
I would
too.
add is that I think it's not easy though, right? Because you can't undo things that people have done for their entire lives with like 3 training classes, you know? So when you get in there, you know, it is a lot of, you have to kind of just keep pushing. And I think for all of us in this space, we have to stay committed to it and just recognize that we're doing good things, and we just have to keep doing it.
Yes. Jackie,
Yeah.
did you want to add something?
Not much to add. I think that, you know, your point about, I would reiterate your point about look for brands that were doing this work before, you know, because they're the ones who obviously have, you know, have made the commitment, and who are doing it well,
Yes.
right? But I do think, maybe I'm a little more optimistic than you are. I do think that companies recognize the importance of this from a financial perspective, right? So I think that, you know, as the numbers show, we see how the population's changing. We see, you know, from a pure money standpoint, that's what's interesting to companies, and that they see that there's the opportunity there. So I feel like that's what's going to drive it.
I heard a line that I would love to give somebody credit. I think I heard this at Ad Color, and I don't know who said it, but they said if you don't have a diversity or a multicultural strategy, you don't have a growth strategy,
Yes.
right? Because all of the
Yes,
growth
that's right.
is coming from you know, diverse audiences.
Yes. So that's why I'm a little optimistic, but.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Hi. Ooh. Thank you. I'm Jade. I'm a recent graduate from the New School. And earlier when you guys were discussing not liking a job and pivoting into one that you like, it really resonated with me. So I graduated last year and I ended up in food science. And I really want to work in advertising and marketing. So I want to know how you
Wow.
guys pivoted. Yeah, food science is very different from media, I would say.
I'll let you take that one, Jackie.
So this is another one. I mean, it's similar to the previous. I would like. Where did you work in food science?
So I worked at a lab that, so small to medium food and beverage brands, alcohol brands, they don't usually have someone to make their formulas for them. So they would contract my company as a third party to make the formulations for them.
I see.
So I personally worked on their supply chain end. So I found every supplier. I also contacted all of these brands to send their samples to them.
Okay, so it's not like you were in. The reason I ask is because it's not like you worked for a specific brand that has communications within. You were sort of more removed in that. Do you know what you're interested in? What you'd like to do? What's like? What is your like dream job?
I would say my dream job is something that lets me express my identity. So I am biracial. I'm half Chinese. I'm also part of the LGBTQ community, and I really just want my community to feel represented, and I want to do that through media.
Okay. Well, I think this goes back to something you said. Someone said earlier. I think you definitely want to find places that value all of those things, right? And so that's like first and foremost. And then I think it's a matter of like maybe really trying to narrow down how you want that to look like, in terms of what you just mentioned, like what you ultimately want to do or produce, and yeah, I don't know. I think that you want to. I lost my train of thought. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think just maybe finding some people that you admire or that
Yeah,
you want to do
that's
things like, and that can give you some ideas around either ways down their path or like people that they know, if you follow people or things like that, or to engage and to be in those spaces in order to meet people who can do something similar, so that you can do something similar by meeting people.
Yeah, I'd say find an organization with shared values. Start there and then figure out what the job is from there. You can look at transferable skills, right? You could take what you've done working in formulation of food and knowing that ultimately it was going to be used in some small batch alcoholic brands. Maybe there's an agency that's looking for somebody that has some of that background, that has some more of that intimate understanding, that you could go work on an AB project, right? At an agency. And think about that type of thing where you show how what you were doing is ultimately a value add to the team that they've got, right? And then learn from them as an example.
This has been really helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Next.
Hi.
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 Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
It's a little closer to the mic. Yep.
You're good.
Yeah.
All right. You're still the COVID thing. I'm still being safe.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah. First off, I'm a student here, so thank you for taking the time and coming to visit. My name is Noemi. I am, like I said, a student here. You guys mentioned before that you guys were hopping around back to back in different jobs. Did you guys ever feel like overwhelmed with new responsibilities in a new company? And second part, did you guys ever burn out while being there? And then how did you recuperate?
All of their heads are nodding.
Wow.
That means yes, and yes. Joe, I'll throw maybe start with the burnout and we'll work backwards to some of the other things.
Okay.
Yeah, look, I loved agency life. It was a lot of fun in my 20s. But then you do burn out really quickly because you're working constantly. There's no off switch on the agency side because you're ultimately responsible for a client, right? And what the client needs something, you have to deliver it, whether it's midnight or a weekend or whatever it might be. And that's where I experienced the burnout. As I said, I can't, that's not the life for me. I don't want to give up my personal time in exchange for some of the benefits that an agency might offer. So for me, that's kind of where I experienced it. But I would say at every new position I've had, I've been overwhelmed. Because you go in thinking one thing and find out the job is completely another, right? I think the other thing that you've probably heard from all of us is you may have a job description, but that doesn't mean that that's what the job is, right? And you can ultimately make it your own, and that's one of the reasons that they hire us, right? Is we believe in you and we know that you can shape this into something that's ultimately going to be valuable to the entire organization. So yes, there's overwhelming at every point, especially when I first started my first day. I think if everybody talks about their first day at a job, like, wow. I mean, I came out of school thinking that I was in charge of the world and that I was going to blow everybody away, and I was put in my place very quickly on day one. So don't feel like you need to know everything. As a matter of fact, probably be a little more humble than I was and ask to learn because there are always opportunities to learn. I still learn every day.
So I see our line is getting longer.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to hold each question to one answer. Thank you for your question. And you can ask our other panelists after if they're willing to hang around. Thank you.
Well,
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
So I'm Chota Yuen. I'm a senior marketing student from Baruch College. And I have just recently started networking on LinkedIn because I heard the importance of it. At first, I was not believing. So I'm really a newbie. So my question is, what do you think is the best way to approach a recruiter that you are qualified for a job? And what is the correct way of asking the employee working in the company for referral?
I'm going to give Jackie that one for our LinkedIn conversation earlier.
Okay, can you say the first part of your question again?
Yes. What is the best way to approach a recruiter that you are qualified for the job?
So you saw a job that was in LinkedIn, like, and you were interested in it?
Yes, and then I messaged the recruiter. So what
Okay.
is the polite and correct way to say that you're qualified?
I would reach out to the recruiter. Is, you know, obviously put this out on LinkedIn there, and you should reach out to them and say, I saw that you're looking for, you have this role. I'm interested, and I'd like to, I'd like to learn more about it, and see if you can make a if you can get some, like an email or something that you can continue the conversation beyond LinkedIn.
And my second question was, what is the correct way of asking employee working in a company for referral?
So you would need a
from
referral.
someone who already works there.
Oh, a referral from someone who already works there. So are you referral to a job, or you want to know more about the company?
Let's say there's an employee who's working in a team, and then you want that employee to notice you and refer you to the recruiter.
Oh, but you don't know this person.
No.
Okay.
That's a hard one.
That's a
Yeah.
hard one. You have no,
It's a cold
you have
call,
no, you have
essentially,
no
yeah.
connection to. How do you know this person?
Just you saw a job and you just.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
I mean, I think your first answer applies, right? You have to make a connect. It won't work unless you make some kind of connection.
You have to make some
with
sort
the
of
person.
connection.
Yeah, or you can find somebody who knows somebody at that
Yeah.
company. But just a hard, can you get me this job? People don't have a reason to help you unless there's a relationship or they have a
Yeah.
relationship with somebody else.
Right.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is,
Mike is getting everyone today.
my name is Gianna Gonzalez. I'm a recent graduate from Lehman College. I'm here as an intern, so I came a little late. I don't know if you guys talked about this already, but my question is, what's the process like when you're advertising film?
Debbie, you want to take that one?
The process when your film is being released? Yeah, so the studio, I guess, that you're working with, because it's a film, will work with both, like, they will have a company who does marketing, but then often they'll also work with, like, Paramount or the networks also to do, actually what we do, which would be branded content, which would be like, we want, for Paramount, maybe RuPaul, right, from Drag Race. Maybe they come together and the IP, the well-known people come together to then promote that movie, right? So you'll have a big promotion plan, you'll have interviews, you'll have press where things are written about, but it will generally come from the studio that you're working with, and then also they'll work with other people to push that as well.
Yeah, just adding on to that, I mean, films are all marketed differently, right? You have big blockbuster films that are going to be marketed differently than indie films, but typically in addition to the studio having input, the creators have input into that marketing campaign. And then, as Debbie's point, like, we all have the ability to pull levers within our organization to help those studios depending on their advertising spend and what their ultimate goals are. So it really just depends, just like any brand would, right? Any brand is going to have different KPIs, key performance indicators, that they're looking for that ultimately show what success looks like.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your question.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Cici, and I'm from Columbia University. I am a master's student in strategic communication. I'm very, very, very interested in multicultural marketing. And I took the course called Global Communication for Professional, and I learned a lot about like politeness difference, a business difference across culture, and then like directness difference. And besides that, I'm also very interested in entertainment. But there's just a problem that I don't have experience in those two fields before. I'm actively looking for an internship in like those two fields. Like the best would be like the combination of those two fields. So I have a question for Jackie. Like, yeah, because Warner Bros. Discovery is definitely one of my ideal companies. So I want to know, like, first of all, I'm not sure what kind of internship position should I apply if I have like those two things that I'm interested in, because a lot of internship that I saw online is usually about like internship opportunity and marketing team, but they didn't really tell you if it's related to like multicultural or like.
I would apply for it anyway.
That's right.
No, really, if it's marketing, if you're saying like it's a finance internship, then no. But if it's marketing and it's at a company that you're interested in, then I would go for it, because then it's a foot in the door. It's a foot in the door. Once you're in, if you get the internship, and once you're there, you're meeting people. You have, especially as an intern, whoever you are reporting to should give you the opportunity. Will have the opportunity to to set up meetings, to meet other people within the organization, to learn more about marketing. So I'd go for it.
Yes, thank you. So another follow-up question is, so like if fortunately I get an interview,
Yes.
what kind of quality that I should showcase if I want to highlight that I want to work in the field of multicultural marketing and entertainment?
Well, I would if it may not be a multicultural marketing role though, right? So I would focus on whatever the role is, and demonstrating like your why you're excited for that particular role. You can certainly talk about your degree, the experience that what you've learned, that you are interested in multicultural marketing. But I would definitely focus it more on whatever that particular marketing group does.
Yeah, thank you. So if I didn't have a chance to get an internship opportunity,
Yes.
what else do you think that I should do? Yeah. Okay.
You can come talk to me after the.
Sorry about this.
Uh-huh.
Hello, I'm a little bit short here. So my name is Susanna, and I just recently graduated Brew College. And I just had a general question, and I don't want to make this personal, but let's say there's a lot of misconceptions about your brand. How do you rebrand yourself as a company or personally?
Wow.
That's a huge question.
That's a
for
question. People
end of
get
the
paid
night.
Well,
hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah.
yes. Well, I'll say I grew up in marketing and brand marketing, so I will say that. But I think the key is that however you want to rebrand, it has to be authentic to what you are. You can't become something totally different. So a lot of research goes into this, of understanding how people connect with your brand. And also, you can't act like things didn't happen that happened, right? But you have to be really just conscious of how you want to move forward, and understand that, and use your brand attributes in order to push forward, right? But people don't forget. They have short memories, but they don't forget, so don't kind of act like it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And our last question, our very patient person who waited a very long time on the line. You have the last word.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cindy Sen, and I am a senior from Baruch College. My major is advertising and marketing communications. So I do have an internship right now, but I'm looking for more internships. But I'm graduating in December, so I know that it is very late for me to start applying for summer internships. So if I ever didn't get any summer internships, what would you recommend me to do in the meantime?
That's a great question. Joe, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, look, I'd say definitely continue to look into it, right? But it sounds like you already have one, which is great. So you have some kind of connection and some type of experience. And I'd say it's a really good time for you to start thinking about what makes sense for you personally. and where you ultimately would like to go, right? It goes back to the rest of the conversation that we've been having about being authentic to yourself and shared values, and finding a place that you can add value while also giving you opportunities to learn and advance your career, right? It's a lot, but that's why you need to kind of take the time to identify what's right. And if you've got the the internships lined up, you can always do a fall one leading into your December graduation. And there are always opportunities, right? What's available now may not be available in December, and what's available in December might not be available now, right? So kind of keep that in mind and kind of be a little bit fluid. You don't have to have everything lined up because a lot of openings happen, based on fiscal years and whatnot. So kind of keep all of those things in mind.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you all. I want to thank our wonderful panelists. Thank you to the Center for Communication for hosting this wonderful conversation and bringing everyone together. And thank you to all of you for hanging with us till the end of the night. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.